Senator Paul.
You know, I think the discussion over vaccines is so oversimplified and dumbed down that we never really get to real truths. And it's why people up here are so separated from real people at home. So we talk about hepatitis B. It's a terrible disease. It could lead to liver failure, as the chairman said. But the reason you have distrust from people at home, why they don't believe anything you say, they don't believe government at all, is you're telling my kid to take a hepatitis B vaccine when he's 1 day old. You get it through drug use and sexually transmitted. That's how you get hepatitis B. But you're telling me my kid has to take it at 1 day old. That's not science. And so every person with a bit of common sense, even people who don't resist vaccines, I vaccinated all my kids. I believe vaccines are one of the modern miracles beyond all pale. The Speckled Monster is a great book about the introduction of the smallpox vaccine in 1720 into our country. All miracles. But I'm not a one-size-fits-all. It's not all or nothing. I chose to wait on my hepatitis B vaccine, and we did it when they went to school. Does that make me an awful person? Does that make me an anti-vaxxer because I questioned the government dictate of whether I do it? And I'm not speaking for anybody else. I'm only speaking for myself. But for goodness sakes, let's have an honest debate about these things. The COVID vaccine. If you ask me my opinion, there were reporters run up and down the aisle and they say, you still anti-vaccine? No, I'm pro-vaccine. But on the COVID vaccine, and on the COVID illness, there was a 1,000-fold or more difference between the elderly and children. If you don't acknowledge that, you're committing malpractice. You're showing your ignorance. If you say a 6-month-old must be mandated to get it, the science is not there. So all this blather about the science says this and the science says that, no, it doesn't. The science actually shows that no healthy child in America died from COVID. Look it up. No healthy child died from COVID. And so the thing is that it's 1,000-fold greater. So if you ask me my advice as a physician, if you were 65 or older or overweight and some other conditions, I would have said, hell yes, I'd take the COVID vaccine. The risks of the disease were real and much greater than the vaccine. But if you ask me, should my healthy 6-month-old get it? See, these are the nuances you're unwilling to talk about because there's such a belief in submission. Submit to the government. Do what you're told. There is no discussion. There ought to be a debate. You're not going to let him have the debate because you're just going to criticize and say, it is this, and admit to it, or we're not going to appoint you. But it's more complicated than that. And this is why people distrust government, because you're unwilling to have these conversations. And go home. Ask your Democrat young mothers, your Republican young mothers, if they're vaccinating their kid for hepatitis B, and they're like, well, do I have to do it on day one? It's this precious little baby. Is there science to say you shouldn't do it? Probably not, but it's my kid. You know, it's like, there isn't clear-cut science saying not to. But on autism, there's no good science of anything to show what causes autism. We don't know. It's a profound disease. I know many moms here and dads who have kids with autism. I know them personally. I've met their kids. But the thing is they saw their kids developing completely normal, maybe speaking 100 words go to no words at about 15 months of age. Now, there isn't proof. There isn't proof that the vaccines cause it. That's true. There isn't proof that it causes it. But we don't know what causes it yet, so shouldn't we be at least open-minded? We take 72 vaccines. Could it be? I don't know. But we shouldn't just close the door and say we're no longer, because we believe so much in submission, we're not going to have an open mind to study these things. And so it's sort of this crazy notion. Schizophrenia, I would put in the same notion. You have a kid who's completely normal to 18 or 19, and their brain goes haywire. How does that happen? It's the most bizarre disease. Shouldn't we be open? Could it be our food? It might be vaccines, it might be our food, but autism's more common. I don't know about the schizophrenia statistics, but autism is more common. Shouldn't we want to be open-minded? Instead, we're so close-minded and we're so consensus-driven that the science says this. Well, science doesn't say anything. Science is a dispute, and 10 years from now, we could all be wrong. We were told in the beginning, 20 years ago, they did this enormous study, and they said, everybody over 50 should take an aspirin. I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea. It makes sense. But you know what? 20 years later, they measured it. And they found if you had no heart disease and you were taking aspirin, your chance of dying from a brain bleed or from a stomach bleed were greater than the risk of heart disease. If you have heart disease, they still say take an aspirin. If you don't, they've changed their mind 20 years later. But would you have all said I was crazy and I should no longer be in public discourse if I had said 20 years ago, I don't feel like taking an aspirin. I ride my bike all the time. I'm afraid I might hit my head. But that's what country's about. It's what dissent is about. So just ask you to look at the larger picture and give the guy a break who says, I just want to follow the science where it leads without presupposition. I think really what we have up here is presupposition. You've already concluded. It's absolute that autism isn't caused by it. We don't know what causes autism, so we should be more humble in what we say. Sorry I didn't get to a question.
For the record, if a child is born to a hepatitis B mother, that child may have a 95% chance of becoming a chronic carrier. But if
And we vaccinate those people, and nobody's against that.
But if the child,
that's a very small percentage and a red herring.
Finish.
That is not what we're talking about. 99.9% of kids don't have a hepatitis B, Mom. And could they wait a while? Could they get vaccinated 3 months or a year? Yes.
So again, for the record, if the mother's hepatitis B status is known, then that can be delayed. The problem is oftentimes, or at least a significant percentage of the time, the mother's status is not known. If she's hepatitis B positive, a vaccine on day one of life prevents chronic hepatitis B 95% of the time. So it really depends upon the knowledge of the mother's hepatitis B status. And when they used to do just, okay, we know the mother's status or not, there was mothers that snuck through. Their status was unknown. We can blame the OBs, yeah, Marshall. But for the record, there is an absolute rationale for that. But you're right. If the mother's status is definitively known, that it can be safely delayed. So now, Senator Murray.
Let me just say this in conclusion, Chairman Cassidy. President Trump and Mr. Kennedy are quite right when they say that our system is broken. They're right. Our economic system today is broken. 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. Wages have been stagnant for American workers for 50 years. The economy is broken. You know what? Our political system is broken and corrupt. You have a handful of billionaires in both political parties who contribute huge amounts of money to elect candidates in this room throughout the United States Congress. That is a broken political system and a real threat to democracy. Our healthcare system is broken. And it's broken for some of the reasons that Mr. Kennedy indicated. We have not paid attention to the fact that we have massive amounts of chronic disease. We have not answered the question why in the richest country in the history of the world, our life expectancy is lower than it is in countries far poorer than we are. So I think in many ways, President Trump and Mr. Kennedy have asked some of the right questions. Problem is their answers will only make a bad situation worse. So let me ask Mr. Kennedy again. If we want to make America healthy, will you assure the American people that you will fight to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to every single American?
I'm going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other major country does? It's a simple question.
And by the way, Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
and protecting their interests.
Oh, I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
pharmaceutical
contributions from workers all over this country. Workers,
you were the
not a nickel from corporate PACs.
You were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in the industry.
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200 million. All right, but you have not answered, last question. You have not answered my question.
Mr. Chairman, we're 3 minutes.
How do
we make America healthy if you don't guarantee health care?
We're literally 3 minutes over here now.
Well,
how long does it keep going? At some time, you're just battering the witness, Bernie.
Not battering the witness.
Yes, you are. And you're getting upset at him. You're going at him just like anybody else would.
We'll come to order. Bernie, he's going over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And welcome, Ms. McMahon. It was good to meet with you in my office a little bit ago. And I've been starting these hearings with a question I never thought I'd have to ask, and I'll cut to the chase with you because you've said several times that you will uphold the law, so I assume that if the President of the United States gives you a directive that breaks the law, you will instead do what you are legally required to do rather than his instruction.
The President will not ask me to do anything that is against the law.
Well, the last month has told us that it is quite likely he may, but I am going to take you at your word that you will enforce the law because you've said it several times today. 3 weeks ago, the President unilaterally cut all federal grants by issuing an indefinite freeze. That's an unconstitutional and, yes, illegal action that was stopped by federal courts, to my previous point. Subsequent reporting indicates that the President is also planning to eliminate the Department of Education. The department that you're interviewing today to lead, and there's this little bit of, I don't know, the whole hearing right now feels kind of surreal to me. It's almost like we're being subjected to a very elegant gaslighting here, because Senator Hawley just asked you, and you talked about the need to enforce protections for Jewish students on college campuses, but the very department where the enforcement would take place is the Department of Education, and he wants to eliminate it, and you say you will work with him to do that. Similarly, you've talked about the importance of apprenticeships and other kinds of career and technical education, really important. There's bipartisan support for that here. The Republicans are in charge. We have bipartisan bill after bipartisan bill. We could go right forward with it, but there's this discussion as if we haven't made any progress on that, and there's somehow a partisan divide about that. So I'd encourage you to look into that. But I want to talk a little bit about why the Department of Education is so important. It plays a critical role in making sure that students, regardless of their zip code, race, gender, disability, or family circumstance, have access to a quality public education. It was established because Congress recognized that the country has a compelling interest in ensuring that all of our kids become self-sufficient members of our workforce and our civil society. New Hampshire schools rely on federal funding of about $2,000 per student to provide that public education. What would you say to parents in my state who are concerned about the President's attempt to cut all federal funding to New Hampshire and to eliminate the Department of Education? Are you telling parents that their children should lose access to special education services, for example, or lose access to trained teachers or school nurses?
Well, thank you, Senator, very much. Let me just object to one point, and that is that, the residents in the state of New Hampshire should not be concerned that federal funding is going to be removed from their schools. How they get that federal funding may change.
My time is limited. What department do you suggest would then administer that funding?
Which funding?
The special education funding.
Special education, I think it could very well go back to HHS, where it started.
All right, so I just want to be clear, you're going to put special education in the hands of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, I want to talk about IDEA a little bit more. I want to turn to a specific issue regarding the President's plan to eliminate the Department of Education. What does the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act promise?
It promises that we're going to take care of these students, that they're going to be provided with assistance that they have in the schoolrooms, the technology that they need, the assistance. And you and I talked a little bit about that with your own child.
IDEA guarantees children with disabilities a free, appropriate education. What is the federal investment promise to states under IDEA? What's it supposed to be?
In terms of dollar amounts?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
The federal government committed back in 1975 when it passed IDEA to pay 40% of the average per pupil expenditure for special education. You know what what the federal government actually does?
I think it's around 14 to 18% at this point.
It's about 15%.
But it's an appropriated amount from Congress, though, and so Congress needs to appropriate those dollars to spend.
That's right, but the President of the United States is proposing, and the Republicans in Congress are proposing massive tax cuts for billionaires, and they're trying to pay for it by massive cuts to education and other services. And just so you know, New Hampshire would lose $60 million in IDEA funding if IDEA were eliminated. My time is almost up. I'm just going to say this. The reason the Department of Education came about in about 1975, IDEA was passed in 1975. 1979 was the department. And Mr. Chair, I'll take just a second here. But people need to understand, people like my son, we talked about him. Before IDEA, before the Department of Education existed, state and local schools did not educate these kids. They barred them from the classrooms. These kids were institutionalized and abused. There is a reason that a Department of Education and IDEA exists, and it is because educating kids with disabilities can be really hard. And it takes the national commitment to get it done. And that's why so many people are so concerned about this proposal to eliminate the department, because they think kids will once again be shoved aside, and especially kids with disabilities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I start my questions, just wanted to put some studies in the record. Recent research studies of private school vouchers in Louisiana, Indiana, Ohio, and Washington, D.C. showed that students who used these vouchers performed worse academically than their public school peers. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record those 4 studies that show private school vouchers have a negative impact on student achievement.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. McMahon, I appreciated the opportunity to meet with you last month, and I believe in giving all the president's nominees a fair shake. That's what the people of Wisconsin expect from me, and I look forward to hearing more about your approach to running the Department of Education if confirmed. Mrs. McMahon, since 1972, Title IX has been a critical tool in ensuring that all students are protected from sex-based discrimination in federally funded education programs. We briefly discussed Title IX in our meeting, but I'd like to ask you a series of yes or no questions to get into a little bit more detail here. So yes or no, do you believe that Title IX should be enforced to protect students from sexual harassment and sexual assault?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe that sexual harassment that is severe should be prohibited under Title IX?
I think sexual harassment should be prohibited in any case.
Thank you. Do you believe that sexual harassment that is pervasive should be prohibited by Title IX?
Yes.
Do you believe that harassment that is either severe or pervasive should be prohibited under Title IX?
I don't believe there should be any acceptance of sexual harassment, Senator.
Great. Because I'm glad you actually agree with President Trump's efforts during his first term to narrow what qualifies as sexual harassment under Title IX. His guidance said that sexual harassment had to be severe and pervasive. And I hope that you will take your position and press for that to be the law. But right now, the Title IX is limited to sexual harassment that is severe and pervasive, not severe or pervasive. Yes or no, if an assault occurs between 2 students, but it happens off campus, do you think the school should have the ability to investigate that matter?
I think the school should investigate that matter, and I believe under the regulations today, and I could be corrected on that, that they are obligated to investigate.
Okay, and do you believe that the school then, after investigation, should have the ability to take actions regarding an incident that occurs off campus?
Yes, I think the school should be required to take those actions and to investigate and to notify the parties that are involved, and that so that both sides of the equation can have due process.
I appreciate your answer. It is not entirely clear at this matter, at this time, that the incidents would not only be investigated, but adjudicated as to the school's adjudication rules. And the problem with that, as I'm sure you're well aware, is that you would have the potential of a victim of sexual assault facing the potential of attending class with their perpetrator. You know, despite how much this administration likes to talk about protecting women and girls, the actions have not matched the rhetoric. And so I think instead of actually protecting women and girls, this administration is not making school a safer place for anyone while using this topic as a way to fearmonger and demonize others. Mrs. McMahon, you have been named in a lawsuit which alleges that you and your husband allowed for systemic and pervasive abuse of underage children to persist in your business for years. It is an ongoing lawsuit, and it alleges that you rehired a known sexual predator and you felt it was sufficient to simply direct him to steer clear of children. If confirmed, you will be responsible with overseeing the Department of Education Office of Civil Rights, charged with ensuring equal access to education through vigorous enforcement of civil rights laws. I am so concerned about whether sexual assault survivors on campus can trust you to support them.
Thank you, Senator. They certainly can trust me to support them. I have a granddaughter that is now in college. I have 2 grandsons who are in college. And I have a deep commitment of understanding of how I would feel if any of them were involved in sexual harassment or accused of sexual harassment. You have my absolute commitment that I will uphold and protect those investigations to make sure that those students are treated fairly on both sides.
Mrs. McMahon, we met shortly after a shooting at... You're a minute over. Oh, I will submit this question for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congresswoman Chavez-DeRemer, welcome. It's great to see you here. I enjoyed our conversation. It's been, gosh, now a month or more ago, but it's great to see you here. You've taken questions, obviously, from both sides, and I know you've taken a little heat from both sides. You've handled it beautifully. Let me just get a few things straight. For my Republican colleagues, let me just clarify. You are President Trump's choice to lead the Department of Labor. Have I got that right?
Yes, you have.
And you support the president's policies and will implement his agenda. Have I got that right?
Yes.
And to my Democrat colleagues, you very proudly sponsored many pieces of pro-labor legislation in your time in the United States House of Representatives. You have a long record of working with labor, of working with business to try to advance a pro-worker agenda. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Which is probably why the president chose you for this role, if I'm speculating. Is that fair? I think your record is really outstanding. Let me ask you about one issue that hasn't gotten a whole lot of airtime today, but I think is so important. That's the significance of immigration when it comes to the American worker. I've got a chart here that I want to show you. This is the Department of Labor's own data on jobs following the pandemic and in the last administration, in the Biden administration. If you look here in the red, those are foreign-born workers. If you look at the blue, those are American-born workers. And as you can see, the data that you can see it, the graphic itself tells the story. American-born workers, no change in employment, just a return to the norm in the Biden administration. Foreign-born workers, that's where all the jobs go. What's it mean? According to the Department of Labor's own statistics, during the Biden administration, virtually all of the job gains, which were pretty meager, I have to say, but even that, virtually all of them went to foreign-born workers. Now, we know, again, from the Biden administration's own statistics, that about 11 million encounters with illegal immigrants were recorded at the border. During 1 month alone, the Biden administration allowed 370,000 illegal immigrants to cross the border. Many of these people got work permits and started working, competing with American workers and legal residents, many of them union members. And of course, illegal immigrants, not union members, companies don't pay them the same wages. They don't offer them the same protections. Speak to the danger of out-of-control illegal immigration when it comes to wages and benefits for American workers.
Thank you, Senator. Very important issue, and one that I know that the president has been very public about, protecting the American worker, and understand that we don't want to displace American workers. I understand some of the senators in the guest visa program on the immediacy of certain industries. But as a whole, we want to make sure that we're always investing in the American worker first, that we want to be one of the strongest economies in the union and in the world. So we can be on a level to compete with our, maybe our foreign adversaries when we're talking about China. But what's important to the president and important to me and how we align is making sure that we're putting the American worker first and that they have the opportunities to earn and be at those jobs as they see fit, and the Department of Labor to support them in that investment in that those industries.
Is it fair to say that a tough border policy that cracks down on illegal immigration, that stops the flow of mass illegal immigration across our border, stops the work permits being given to illegal immigrants, this is pro-worker. This helps American workers maintain their wages and maintain their jobs. Is that fair to say?
It does.
Let me ask you about some of the children who came across the border, were trafficked across the border in the last administration. 520,000 of them, to be precise, unaccompanied children trafficked across the border. Hundreds of thousands of them lost and now being exploited by companies like Tyson's Food, for example. Let me just give you an example of bad corporate behavior. Tyson's Food has closed down 2 major plants in my state, the state of Missouri, just in the last year and a half. They have canceled contracts with farmers. They have put thousands of workers in my state out of business, and yet we know from the investigations done by the New York Times and others that they have huge numbers of illegal child labor in their supply chains. In their factories, they are putting children who are trafficked here to work. So they're firing American workers, but they are exploiting child workers. Will you go after companies like Tyson's and anyone else who would violate our labor laws and exploit children while they are firing American workers?
Yes, that's an important remit under the Department of Labor, as you know, to protect and not exploit all workers, but certainly child labor should not be accepted by anybody in America. And the Department of Labor has the enforcement capability to double down if they knowingly are breaking the law and exploiting children in their factories.
I think we've got to make the penalties even tougher. Senator Booker and I have bipartisan legislation to do that. And again, it is pro-worker to say we're going to protect Americans who are working legally, and we're not going to allow children to be exploited in this country, or people trafficked into this country to be exploited for the purpose of profits by these mega corporations.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Hawley. Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for calling this important hearing. Thanks to our witnesses for being here. Mr. Stern, if I could just start with you. I see that 5 or 6 days ago you gave an interview in which you said that the removal of Mahmoud Khalil, the pro-Hamas foreign rioter, is a form of McCarthyism and makes Jewish students less safe. Now, this is an individual who has been accused of endorsing and espousing terrorist activity, who's been accused of lying on his application to a green card in the United States, who's currently being sued for terrorizing and assaulting Jewish students. Do you stand by your view that trying to remove him is a form of McCarthyism?
Absolutely, Senator.
Why in the world would that be the case?
Let me answer. He hasn't been charged with the crime. The clear predicate for this, White House said, was handing out pro-Hamas propaganda. When you start talking about people's views and what they're talking about in the public square as a basis for discrimination, and then the effect on Jewish students, it's not just the fact that Jews may be seen as, well, we're pushing this and that's going to happen. The way that this is going to harm Jewish students is it harms the academy.
Wait a minute. My time is limited. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just wait a minute. I've got to correct numerous inaccuracies there. Number one, as you very well know, United States law says that a non-citizen is inadmissible for entry into this country if they, and I quote, endorse or espouse terrorist activity or persuade others to do the same. That same law provides you can be removed for the same reasons. That is what Mr. Khalil has been accused of. He has further been accused of by the United States government lying on his visa application. That on its own would be sufficient to remove him from this country. He is being sued, as you and I sit here in New York court, by the victims of October 7th for terrorizing and assaulting Jewish students, unlawfully taking over and damaging public university property, and physically assaulting Columbia University employees. And you're telling me that it's McCarthyism to remove this individual?
Senator, the deportation was started before that lawsuit, before that second question about what he was saying on his forms.
No, this is what the government has alleged in open court, Mr. Stern. This is the basis for their removal proceedings. And our law makes clear if you endorse or espouse terrorist activity, you can be removed from this country. He has done so. He's been accused of doing so from the beginning. He's been accused of lying to get into the country. I'm amazed that you're saying that this is McCarthyism.
Senator, you weren't here when I quoted part of what Justice Brandeis was talking about the back at a case where there's somebody that was convicted for supporting the Communist Party because they were talking about violence as a political solution. And Brandeis cautioned us that this type of robust speech, as long...
This isn't speech. Lying on a visa application is not speech. Seeking to assault Columbia University employees and Jewish students is not speech. You are defending an individual who has espoused the destruction of this country, the destruction of the state of Israel, the destruction of Jews, and has taken actions in furtherance of the same. You've also said that investigating the 60 colleges and universities that are currently under investigation by the Trump administration for anti-Semitism is a form of weaponizing anti-Semitism for political benefit. You're opposed to investigating these institutions for anti-Semitism?
Senator, I've been very clear that OCR has a very important role, that there are complaints that should go through the process. When you start using the Department of Justice and threatening universities' funding.
You are opposed, I just want to get this on the record, you are opposed to investigating Columbia University and others for anti-Semitism?
No.
That's what you said 6 days ago.
I am not opposed to doing it the right way.
What does that mean, doing it the right way?
Not to claw back funds, not to say we're holding you ransom. We're getting your faculty, Jewish...
You were asked about an investigation for failing to protect Jewish students, and you said that's just weaponizing anti-Semitism. It makes students less safe.
It is when the
I think that's
Department of
crazy.
Justice has a list of places they want to go to. The Senator Markey's question...
Oh, I heard Senator Markey's questions. I heard his whole speech. I thought it was insane. I just want to say for the record, I thought it was totally insane. And I think your positions are similarly insane. I think the idea that we would bend over backwards to hug and kiss and make nice to a pro-Hamas rioter, because that's what Khalil is, and that we would say, heavens, we can't remove him, and that makes Jewish students less safe on our campuses? That's nuts.
Senator,
that's
David,
nuts.
To Rabbi Saberstein's point, if you look at American history, the times when Jews were most vulnerable was during the Palmer raids in World War I, when there was political...
Jews are vulnerable now on our campuses because of people like Khalil, and I want to say for the record, I'm glad he's gone, and I hope he never comes back.
Senator Hickenlooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for your time here and all your work.
Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my questions are going to be addressed to all five. We have 5 experts on anti-Semitism, and I look forward to taking advantage of their knowledge. This is not the Foreign Relations Committee, so we're not here to debate the wisdom or lack of wisdom of what the Netanyahu government is doing in Gaza right now. But the reality is that 92% of the housing units in Gaza have been destroyed. Most hospitals and primary healthcare facilities have been bombed. Civilian infrastructure has been devastated. 50,000 people, mostly women and children, have been killed. Over 100,000 have been wounded. If I or any other member of this committee makes that point, that we think, and again, I don't want to debate the policies right now, but if we think that the United States should not be supplying more bombs and artillery to the Netanyahu government, do you think, I don't want the debate on Israel, do you think that is anti-Semitic? Briefly, Ms. Gamble, start it and go right down the line. Am I being anti-Semitic if I say that the United States taxpayers should not supply more weapons to Israel?
That statement alone is not anti-Semitic. It does not attack Jewish identity.
Rabbi?
I must say, you are revered on one side of the aisle and respected on the other side of the aisle for the strength of your convictions. You do not say dispassionate statements. So just like I believe we have to respect the right of everyone to their opinion, I believe the Prime Minister is a democratically elected official and is entitled to his opinion. Do I think it is anti-Semitic to criticize him? I don't think so. If you criticize somebody who's Jewish, that's not anti-Semitic. If you criticize the fact that they're Jewish,
Right, I
or
agree.
use that to criticize something, that's anti-Semitic.
Dr. Small, briefly, we don't have a lot of time.
So again, I would agree with the rabbi, and what you said is not anti-Semitic, but what I would say with great respect is that we have to flip the equation. I think instead of blaming the victim or looking to the victim of Hamas, of the Muslim Brotherhood, we have to understand the ideology at work that's confronting
I don't think there's any
Israel.
debate up here that Hamas is a terrorist organization. What they did on October 7th is beyond disgusting. Rabbi Saperstein.
No, I don't think it is anti-Semitic if you say it, or if people on college campuses say it. But on college campuses, there are too many instances in which those kinds of political statements are mixed with rank hatred against Jews, and that steps over the line into anti-Semitism.
Mr. Stern.
Senator Sanders, just that statement, that opinion alone is not anti-Semitic.
Okay, now I need your help on something else. I have never met George Soros in my life, to the best of my knowledge. I don't believe I've ever received a nickel in campaign funding from Mr. Soros. But I think, as all of you know, Soros has been a stereotype, a manifestation of anti-Semitism all over the world. Yes? Warren? So when we talk about anti-Semitism, one of the tropes that has always been used, prodigals of Zion, is that there's this mysterious underground group of zillionaire Jews who are manipulating the whole world, right? Is that the trope? Okay. This, from the Holocaust Memorial Museum, is something that appeared in Hungary, a Hungarian anti-Semitic publication. Jews, puppeteers, right? Familiar with that trope? Mm-hmm. This is from a Donald Trump campaign email. George Soros, puppeteer. Biden is the puppet being manipulated. Okay. I don't want to make a big deal about it. Ms. Gamble, does that look to you like an anti-Semitic trope?
I think that there's no question that there is a relationship when you look at the two images that would cause that question to be raised. Again, I think context is key.
Rabbi?
George
Briefly, I want to hear from everybody. Yes or no? Is that do you think that has anti-Semitic overtones?
I think that George Soros is Jewish, although he doesn't really identify closely with the community. 1 minute.
No, I don't have 1 minute. I got 17 seconds, sir.
Okay, 17 seconds.
Is this anti-Semitic?
Very simply, he's being criticized. He's Jewish. I don't know that he's being criticized because he's Jewish.
All right, Dr. Simone?
And I would say very briefly, we're living in a time where the Democratic center is under attack from the extreme right, the extreme left, and radical Islam.
I asked you a question. Does this look like an anti-Semitic trope?
Yes.
Rabbi Saperstein?
Yes.
Mr. Stern?
Anti-Semitism is two things in its essence: a conspiracy theory that Jews try to harm humanity and giving them an explanation for what goes wrong in the world. That picture is anti-Semitic. Orban was using it recently as well, clearly anti-Semitic.
Okay, thank you very much.
Senator Collins. Senator also Brooks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I'm over here. I've been sitting through this hearing all day today and have noted that you've been unable, in most instances, to answer any specific questions relating to your agency.
Because I haven't been given time.
Well, no, you have been given time, but the point of the matter is you've been unable to answer specific questions. Sir, you are the wrong person for this job, and you had in this hearing today the unmitigated gall to say at the beginning of your testimony that China is ahead of the United States in healthcare because China does not have DEI.
I didn't say that.
Well, we can roll back the tape. You absolutely
And
did
you
say
will
that.
find I didn't say that.
That is absolutely what you said.
I was talking about science. I didn't say they're ahead of us. They're ahead of us in some forms of science, certainly not in healthcare.
Well, we can roll back the tape, but nonetheless, let me go on with my questions and ask you this. You just heard about the Safe to Sleep campaign, and you have made cuts. You made it very clear here today. You have no knowledge whatsoever. of the absolutely amazing scientists and researchers who you have callously fired. You know nothing about the cuts
Didn't
to
fire
agencies.
any working scientists, Senator.
That, sir, is not true either. But nonetheless,
But it
let me
is
ask
true.
you, it is not true. Let me ask
It
you
is
another
true.
specific question. The Safe to Sleep campaign, well, then can you name, sir, which office the Safe to Sleep campaign operates out of?
The which campaign?
Well, that's the one that the senator just asked you about 2 minutes ago that prevents babies from dying in their sleep. A 30-year program inside your agency. You would agree that it's
I
important.
think it's part of HRSA or ACF. It's ACF.
No, actually, it's in Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
And I think, and again,
No, they're all within Health and Human Services, but the subdivision is ACF.
no, actually, the name of the office
Administration
is
of
the
Children and Families.
No, let me tell you what it is. The National Institute of Child Health and Human Development. This is actually the one that your aunt, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, is the person who it's named after. And you noted just a moment ago, the senator reminded you that although this is a very important agency, prevents babies from dying, this is the same one you fired every single person in this office as of April the 1st. It is also—
As I said, there were no working scientists fired during the RIF.
We can bring you that information later, but because what you just said is not true. Well, then the question also is, in addition to firing the individuals who make sure babies don't die in their sleep, why did you cut funding and staff from the CDC's National Center on Birth Defects and Developmental Disabilities, which supports the Special Olympics? Was that a mistake? I've heard you say you've made some mistakes today. Was that also a mistake?
We switched those programs to the Administration for Healthy America. They have not been cut.
Well, the funding has been cut, and this is one that oversaw the Special Olympics. Are you aware of that?
We have not cut the Special Olympics.
You've cut the funding, and you also dismantled the Division of Reproductive Health and Women's Health and Fertility. You're aware of that, right?
We have, right now, we have 42 divisions that do maternal health, and we're consolidating them. And the mainstream media has portrayed those as cuts, but they're not cuts, they're consolidations. It's ridiculous to have 42 divisions that are all supposed to be doing the same thing with their own administrators.
Well, let me ask you a question. So it doesn't exist right now. It's been dismantled. That is a fact, that particular division, what you plan to do in the—
There's 42 divisions on maternal health. We consolidated.
Sir, let me finish what I'm saying here. The fact of the matter is you have dismantled it as we speak. And are you aware, what does the assisted reproductive technology mean to you? Are you familiar with that?
Are you talking about IVF?
Well, it's assisted reproductive technology. It's a division. Do you know what it does?
Is it part of NIH?
No, it's actually a part of your agency. It's a
Oh,
part.
NIH is part of my agency, Senator. You should know that.
I do know that, but it's actually a part of, it's the CDC is where it is.
Okay, then it's CDC.
Right, okay. Let me just ask you, and again, these are all of the things you seem unfamiliar with, the ones, the programs that you've cut.
You're unfamiliar with my agency, that NIH and CDC are part of HHS.
Oh, I absolutely know. NIH is in my county. I was there this past weekend with the researchers that you have fired. So I absolutely know where NIH is, sir, and don't need any help from you in knowing that. I see the time. Thank you.
Senator Bloom.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Secretary Kennedy, thank you for being here. I'd like to start by talking about the current measles outbreak, which I know is a concern for all of us here today. 2 children in Texas have tragically died from measles this year, the first children to die from measles in our country in more than 20 years. Measles is almost completely preventable with the measles vaccine. As you know, it's critical that families hear directly and clearly from healthcare leaders about how they can best protect their children. So, Mr. Secretary, I'd like to give you an opportunity to say clearly here today to any parents who are watching that the best way to protect their children from measles is to vaccinate them.
Yeah, I've said that the best way to stop the spread of measles is through vaccination. But I would say this: we have handled this measles outbreak. We get a measles outbreak every year. we've handled this measles outbreak better than any other nation.
What I was interested in, I'm just, you can say, what I asked you to do was to say straight to the camera, as you did on social media, that it is your position that the best way for parents to prevent their kids from getting measles is to vaccinate them. And that is your statement
And
today.
I said
Is
that too.
right? All right, well, that is great, thank you. Now, you lead the nation's health department, so let me ask you a couple of questions. Do you think HHS should employ anyone who has endangered the health of children?
No.
You hired David Geyer to lead autism research at HHS, an individual who fraudulently posed as a doctor and gave dangerous medications and medical tests to children with autism. According to the state of Maryland's investigation, David Geyer, who has no medical license or training, gave hormone blocker injections to children with autism who were as young as 8 years old, which the Maryland Board of Medicine said poses a substantial risk of harm. Secretary Kennedy, yes or no, will you fire David Geyer?
First of all, what you're saying is not true. And we did not hire David Geyer to manage autism research at HHS.
So
And
what is his job? What is his job then?
You just said some very defamatory
Well, no,
things about a person who, by the way,
so let me just be clear for the record.
those charges, Senator, I am going to correct the record on
No,
this
let
because
me
you
just
have defamed
let
a
me tell you
person.
what the record says, and then I will hear from you. Last week, when Mr. O'Neill was here in his confirmation hearing, I submitted for the record the charge that the state of Maryland laid out. Now, if you'd like also for me to submit to the record with unanimous consent today, the findings of the state of Maryland, which fined him $10,000 for practicing medicine without a license. He does not have a medical license, and for providing and instructing and giving children hormone blockers. That is what the finding of the Maryland Department, the state of Maryland, its medical licensing board was. And I'll submit that for the record, I hope with unanimous consent.
I'm assuming that you don't know what I'm about to tell you, or you wouldn't say something that was so dishonest. You may or may not know that David Geyer sued the American.
Oh, I do know that. I do know that. That doesn't change the findings, nor does it change the experience of the parents who testified.
That finding was reversed by court, and he was awarded $5 million.
That is not true. Now, let me ask you, so I just want confirmation. David Geyer is still at HHS. I wrote you a letter about this a month ago, and you have not responded.
Well, I apologize for that. That's our bad, and I will respond. But David Geyer is not managing autism research.
So what is his job? What is his job at HHS? This is somebody who gave parents the impression that he was a doctor and gave hormone blockers to children as young as 8, telling them that hormone blockers would somehow magically help their kids with autism.
His father
His father is a doctor, but he is not. And his father was not in the room and did not, and he faked his father's signature according to the State Board of Medicine.
And that ruling was overturned by a court. So what you're saying is just wrong. It's just a lie. And they were actually, the court said that the Maryland Board of Physicians was guilty of actual malice in fabricating those charges against David Geyer.
Well, we will pursue this.
So-
And I will submit for the record.
So do you want to know why we brought David Geyer in?
Sure.
Because it wasn't to run autism research. In 2002, the CDC runs a vaccine safety data link, which is supposed to be the vaccine information for the biggest HMOs that are supposed to allow CDC to have a surveillance system for vaccine injury. It's a backstop system. The CDC will not let any physicians in there to look at it or any scientists, independent scientists.
He's neither a scientist nor a physician.
Right. Congress ordered CDC to open it to the Geyers. So they are the only scientists who have ever been in there.
But again, Mr. Geyer is not a scientist. Thank you.
Independent scientists.
Okay, Senator Hessen's time's expired, but before we move on, did you have a unanimous consent request that I heard in there, Senator?
Senator Hawley, I did. A unanimous consent request for the printout of the website that shows Dr. Geyer is not Dr. Geyer, that's his father, Mr. Geyer, is employed, and also a unanimous consent request for the finding from the Board of Licensing in Maryland. Thank you.
Without objection to both
Thank
of
you.
those. And now, Mr. Kennedy, before we get to my time, do you want, if you'd like to finish your response, go ahead,
let
and
me
then
say that.
I'll recognize myself.
David Geyer is the only living independent scientist who's seen the VSD inside. There's been a lot of monkey business with the VSD, including allegations of fraud. And he was hired by an independent contractor not as an HHS employee, but by an independent contractor to look at the documents that we were getting to the VSD to see if they conformed with what he saw between 2002 and 2016. And that's the only reason that he was brought in, to see if there's so much information that has disappeared from that database. The only way we could find out what information disappeared was because he was the one guy who saw it.
And just let the record show he's not a scientist. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me stop going back to prescription drugs. Mr. Secretary, did I hear you correctly to state that your goal is to have Americans pay the lowest prices in the world, or equivalent to what is paid in other major countries? That is my goal. That you are prepared to work with us on legislation to achieve that goal?
Absolutely.
All right. And I believe there's bipartisan support for it. I believe that if the leadership here prioritizes that, we can do that in a very short period of time. Look forward to that. Let me ask you this, as Secretary of HHS. We have in America today some 85 million Americans who are uninsured or underinsured. We spend more per capita, as you've indicated, than any other country. Is healthcare a human right? Are we making America healthy when so many people cannot afford to go to a doctor, when 68,000 people a year die because they don't get to a doctor when they should? Is healthcare a human right? Will you work with us to guarantee healthcare to every man, woman, and child in America?
Well, I think you're asking two different questions. You're asking a philosophical question about whether it is a human right, like a constitutional right. As an attorney, I would say that it's not a right of a kind that we otherwise enshrine in the Constitution, because healthcare costs your neighbor money. If I smoke cigarettes for 20 years, I make that choice, which is my choice.
I don't mean to, I don't have a lot of time, so but I am here.
If you're asking me a philosophical question, I gotta, give you a thoughtful answer.
Within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
So, it's not like freedom of speech, which costs, everybody.
But every other country, Mr. Secretary, every other country guarantees health care to all people as a right. Should we, as Americans?
The objective is to get Americans the level of health care that they want, the choice, which Americans want.
They don't want the choice to be uninsured.
Well, but
they don't want the choice to die because they don't get to a doctor on time.
Americans prefer private insurance to other insurance sources.
Do you believe? Okay.
And what I would say is, I want to find a solution to this. I want every American to have insurance. President Trump wants every American to be insured and have access to health care. The question is, how do we get there? Obamacare is not working. It is not working. And this is the...
Sorry to interrupt you. All right. The reconciliation...
My job is to try to make it work.
All right. I have limited time. The reconciliation bill that is now being worked on in the House will come to the Senate. As it stands right now, cuts Medicaid in the Affordable Care Act by more than $715 billion, which the CBO has estimated would eliminate health insurance for 13.7 million Americans, and also raise co-payments for millions of others, is throwing 13 million Americans off of the health care they have, poor and working class people, keeping America healthy.
Well, I haven't seen that number. I've seen the number 8 million. And here the people, the cuts are not true cuts. The cuts are eliminations of waste, abuse, and fraud. And I can go through. I can go through the people who will lose it. There are a million people,
I really don't mean to be rude, but as you know, I have a very limited amount of time.
You asked the question, I'm going to answer it.
Well, yeah, I've got a bunch of questions that I would like you to answer as well. All right, we talk about austerity, doing more with less, but in that very same bill that is being worked on in the House right now, there are $235 billion in tax breaks for the top 0.2%. Do you think that makes sense when that same bill would throw 13 million people off of Medicaid? Should we give tax breaks to billionaires and throw kids and others off of Medicaid?
You're conflating the congressional bills with the proposals from the president. The president
No, I'm talking
is
about
not
the
making
congressional bill. I'm talking about the bill, the reconciliation bill.
I mean, the president is not trying to do tax cuts for billionaires. He's trying to have no tax on tips and no tax for
$235 billion through the estate tax.
How many billionaires do you know that are making overtime or making any part of the
$235 billion. Look, it's a big bill. There are a lot of provisions in it, but you cannot deny the top 0.2% will get $235 billion in tax breaks while we cut Medicaid. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Kennedy, you run a department that touches the lives of almost every American. Yet for this budget hearing, these are the 6 pages that we have gotten in terms of your budget request. We are also 7.5 months into this fiscal year, and yet you are not telling the American public anything about how you are spending the billions in taxpayer dollars right now. You had to submit an operating plan to the Congress, and this is just a sample page, but 530 programs simply have asterisks. Secretary Kennedy, this isn't about your hiding information from me. This is about your hiding information from the American public. And if you're going to cut cancer research or gut mental health support, at least stand by your work and explain it to the American people. Now, Secretary Kennedy, I want to start with what I hope is an easy question for you. Do you think lead poisoning in children is a significant concern?
Is lead poisoning
in children a significant concern?
It's a extremely significant concern.
Thank you. Then I would like to know why your department has effectively shut down the very program to address lead poisoning in children. The city of Milwaukee requested assistance from the CDC to help the city respond to lead poisoning cases tied to public schools. 6 schools have been closed, displacing more than 1,800 school children. The request for federal assistance was denied because of lack of staff. The entire childhood lead poisoning branch has been fired. In the words of a Milwaukee mom, it really sends a message of, you don't matter. I don't know what you would say to parents who must now test their children for lead and deal with school closures. But do you intend to eliminate this branch at CDC, yes or no?
No, we do not.
Okay. Because you cannot tell us that you want to make America healthy again when you are willfully destroying programs that keep children safe and healthy from lead poisoning. Congress dedicated $51 million in funding for this particular program. But when a community asks for help to prevent lifelong complications for children, and there is no one there to pick up the phone, and it's not because this program is ineffective, it's because you fired the entire team whose job it is to support communities like Milwaukee.
If that money has been appropriated, we will spend that money. If it's been appropriated to Milwaukee, we will spend it in Milwaukee. I've spent a lot of time in Milwaukee
It's to
working on
provide
that issue.
expert, and the entire staff has been fired. Secretary Kennedy, I did note in your opening testimony although we wouldn't know it from the skinny budget that we have, that you plan on funding the Head Start program. But I want to tell you about the ramifications of what has happened to date with regard to Head Start. I've heard from families across the state, people who are terrified about the uncertainty and instability surrounding Head Start. Just 1 week into President Trump's administration, Head Start programs in Wisconsin suddenly couldn't access their grant funding. It forced one Head Start in Waukesha, Wisconsin, to temporarily close, leaving 250 families without care. Over the last 4 months, HHS has provided roughly $1 billion less to Head Start programs across the country than during the same period last year. The delays in funding have exacerbated uncertainty for programs needing to make payroll. And in some instances, like the one I cited in Waukesha, programs have had to shut their doors until the payments came through. Now, I don't know what you would say to a parent who is unable to drop their child off at preschool because you failed to get already appropriated money out the door. Or maybe I should ask you, what would you say to a parent who shows up for child care or for Head Start and the doors are closed?
I would be very sad if somebody shut up. I fought very, very hard to make sure that there be
what
no
is
cuts.
causing the delays in
As
Head
I
Start
said,
funding?
I fought very hard to make sure that Head Start gets all of its funding next year.
Well, we need it this year, and why are there delays now?
I don't know that there are, Senator, and I will look into it, but I don't know. There should not be any delays. The funding is there. We are spending it. It's allocated. I don't know why there would be those kind of problems. I can tell you that within the agency, there were, there were people who wanted to make the Trump administration look bad, and that there were checks held up that shouldn't have been. I will have to look into that, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. I want to ask you some questions about staff reduction and kind of the timing of it. You were confirmed by the Senate on February 13th, so I'm sort of assuming that things happened before you were confirmed were other people's work. On January 28th, the fork in the road letter came out to people across the federal employment space, widely attributed to OPM and Elon Musk and Doge. But that was before you were confirmed, so you had nothing to do with the fork in the road letter, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You were confirmed on February 13. On February 14, 1 day later, HHS announced that 3,500 probationary employees were going to be laid off. I know you're a hard worker, but am I right to assume that in the 1 day between your confirmation and the next day, you weren't the primary decision maker about laying off probationary employees at HHS?
I was aware of it, and I could have blocked it.
Yeah, you were aware of it, so you weren't the primary decision maker. Was that a decision that was made like OPM or Doge? And because it wasn't just HHS, it was all federal agencies who would lay off probationary. Do you know where that decision was?
I had my full upper staff in place before I got there.
Right, but did they make the decision, or was it White House and Doge to lay off probationary employees?
They made the decision. My staff made the decision, although Doge came in, and Doge gave us information that we wouldn't otherwise have had access to.
Okay. Next, we go to April 1st.
I can also say this.
No, all I asked was if you made it, and you answered the question, and I appreciate it. April 1, HHS RIFs 10,000 employees effective June 2. Now, by this point, you had been secretary for about 6 weeks. A few days after that announcement, HHS staff briefed our staff, the Senate help staff, and basically, just here's some highlights. In that 10,000 RIFs, 467 staff at the Administration for Children and Families, 2,473 at the Centers for Disease Control, 322 at CMS, 400 at HRSA, 1,312 at National Institutes of Health, 197 at SAMHSA, 2,519 at the Food and Drug Administration. By now, you've been secretary for 6 weeks, so this was RIFs, not the forks, but you were involved in the decision about these 10,000 RIFs, correct?
Yes.
And in tandem with your leadership team, correct?
Yes. Yes. And as I said before, I pushed back on certain ones and canceled certain ones.
Yeah. I think yesterday, it may have been earlier today, you confirmed that 20,000 employees have been let go, at HHS, 10,000 riffed and 10,000 forked. Do you know how many of the 20,000 were veterans?
No, I do not.
That is a fact that's very easy to determine from someone's personnel file. So I'm going to ask that question for the record. We are finding across the government that veterans are disproportionately being let go, A, because they're a higher percentage of the federal workforce, and B, they're a dramatically higher percentage of probationary employees because they leave military service after 10 or 25 years, and then they're probationary new employees when they join the civilian service. So I want to find the answer to that question. Where does the rubber meet the road on 20,000 rifts and layoffs and forks? In people not getting cancer trials, and I appreciate your willingness to help Senator Murray's constituent, in state grants being canceled, in Virginia losing $425 million in funding to the Virginia Department of Health. But here's a small example. All of our offices do casework. All of them do casework. And we get requests from constituents all the time. CMS is the largest agency in the federal government. Its budget is nearly twice the size of the Pentagon. And people who depend on Medicaid, Medicare, and the SCHIP program really, really depend on it. And it's the most consistent in the top 3 or 4 in terms of constituent requests to my office. Answer this question about Medicare or Medicaid or the SCHIP program. In every administration I've served with, Obama, Trump 1, Biden, I get answers to questions on behalf of constituents. I may not get them as fast as I like, and sometimes I like the answer and sometimes I don't. But let me show you what CMS is now doing to answer constituent questions. I've omitted the name of the constituent, and I've omitted the name of my staffer. This was very recent. A hardworking retiree, patriotic tax-paying American who's on Medicare wrote to ask CMS a very simple question about Medicare. Couldn't get an answer. Asked us to reach out. We reached out to the Medicare Part C and D Congressional Liaison Office. And here was their answer to our basic question. Unfortunately, there is not an update to provide. With the recent change of administration, we are unable to provide any information related on matters related to Mr. X's request, Congressional Casework Team. I mean, if you're just an everyday, hardworking American retiree on Medicare, and you have a basic question about it, you ought to be able to get an answer. And I'm just going to say, I've shared this with my colleagues, and many of us are having the same experience where our constituents can't get a basic question answered. I wonder if 20,000 fewer employees is connected to this. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Secretary Kennedy, I want to talk to you about your relationship with this committee and this Congress. I want to talk to you about the statements that you made to the chairman of this committee and to members of this committee during your confirmation hearing about vaccines. You didn't tell the truth. I find that to be really dangerous for our relationship. If I were the chairman who believes in vaccines and voted for you because he believed what you said about supporting vaccines, my head would be exploding. In the hearing, you told us, quote, "I will not work to impound, divert, or otherwise reduce any funding appropriated by Congress for the purpose of vaccination programs." That's not the truth. You've done exactly. Let me finish my question.
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said. I'm just asking you to repeat it so I can understand your question.
During the hearing, I'll repeat it. During the hearing, you said to this committee and to the Finance Committee, "I will not work to impound, divert, or otherwise reduce funding appropriated by Congress for the purpose of vaccination programs." That is not what happened. You've done the opposite. You canceled $12 billion in grants to the states, including my state, that are used to administer and track vaccines. You promised Chairman Cassidy.
When did I do that?
Madam Chair, would you allow me to finish my question?
When did I do that?
Let me finish my question.
Accusation. Just tell me when I did it so I can understand what the question is.
You have canceled $12 billion in public health grants to states, whether you know this or not. That funding is used by the states in part to be able to administer and dispense information about vaccines. Mr. Secretary, let me give you the full panoply of
of
the things you said- the
accusations
things you
without
said before
details.
the things you said before this committee that didn't turn out to be true. You also promised Chairman Cassidy that the FDA would not change vaccine standards from, quote, historical norms. But what happened as soon as you were sworn in? You announced new standards for vaccine approvals that you proudly referred to in your own press release as a radical departure from current practice. And experts say that that departure will delay approvals. You also said, specific to the measles vaccine, that you support the measles vaccine. But you have consistently been undermining the measles vaccine. You told the public that the vaccine wanes very quickly. You went on the Dr. Phil show and said that the measles vaccine was never fully tested for safety. You said there's fetal debris in the measles vaccine. And this morning—
All true, all true.
This morning in
Do
front of—
you want me to lie to the public?
That's not, none of that is, none of
Of
that,
course
none
it's
of that
true.
is true.
Of
None
course
none of
it's
that
true,
is
Senator.
Secretary. None of
Senator,
that is true.
begging your
And I will
progress, you
submit-
do not know what you're talking
submit
about.
for the record.
Let's have a little bit of order so that you can get
Madam
your
Chair,
question
I'm
and we can get
I didn't
this
ask,
figured.
I didn't ask for a response yet.
I
I'd
understand
like to
that.
lay out the predicate of my question before I'm interrupted by the witness. He should
Go
have some
ahead.
respect for this committee.
Go ahead.
Just this morning in front of the House of Representatives, you also said that you, in fact, would not recommend that kids get vaccinated for measles. You said you would just lay out the pros and cons. Okay, so this is the summation of everything that you have said to compromise people's faith in the measles vaccine in particular is contrary to what you said before this committee. You said you support the measles vaccine, but then you have laid out a set of facts that are contested, and I will submit information for the record from experts who contest what you've said about the vaccine, and the result is to undermine faith in the vaccine. It's kind of like saying, listen, I think you should swim in that lake, but, you know, the lake is probably toxic, and there's probably a ton of snakes and alligators in that lake, but I think you should swim in it. Nobody's going to swim in that lake if that's what you say. And so I want you to acknowledge that when you say you support the measles vaccine and then go out and repeatedly undermine the vaccine with information that is contested by public health experts, that is not supporting the vaccine. And so I guess I have two simple questions for you. One is, can you clarify what you said in the House this morning? Are you or are you not recommending that families get their children vaccinated, or are you just giving people the pros and cons? And do you understand that when you say these things about the measles vaccine, what ends up happening is less people get the vaccine? That may be what you want, but do you understand that the result of constantly questioning the efficacy or safety of the vaccine results in less people getting the vaccine? So I don't necessarily want to spend the remaining 20 seconds in an argument over the science, but do you at least understand that that's the consequence of what you're saying? And are you actually still recommending people get the vaccine, or are you not?
Senator, if I advised you to swim in a lake that I knew there to be alligators in, wouldn't you want me to tell you there were alligators in it?
So are you recommending the measles vaccine or not?
What I've said and what I said in—
Doesn't sound like you are, if that's—
Are you going to let me answer? Are you going to keep interrupting?
Are you or are you not?
Are you going to let me answer? What I pledged before this committee during my confirmation is that I would tell the truth, that I would have radical transparency. I'm going to tell the truth about everything we know and we don't know about vaccines.
Are you recommending the measles vaccine or not?
I am not going to just tell people everything is safe and effective if I know that there's issues. I need to respect people's intelligence.
I think you're answering the question. I think you're
And the
answering the
reason
question. That's
that
really
people—
dangerous for the American public and for
We're
families.
gonna
The reason
move to
people have
Senator
lost faith in this program is because they've been lied to by public officials for
Secretary
year
of Health
after
and
year
Human
after
Services
year.
no longer recommending the measles vaccine.
Senator Marshall.
Sanders for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Secretary, thanks for being with us. Let me begin by quoting a sentence that came from your prepared remarks. You state, and I quote, "The United States remains the sickest developed nation, and we spend $4.5 trillion annually on health care, 2 to 3 times more per capita than comparable nations. Clearly, something is structurally wrong with our approach," end of quote. You're right. The current healthcare system is broken. It is wildly expensive. It is dysfunctional. So what do we do, Mr. Secretary, to address it? Maybe for a start, we do what every other major country on earth does, and recognize that health care is a human right guaranteed to every man, woman, and child. Maybe we understand that the function of a rational healthcare system is not to make hundreds of billions of dollars in profit for insurance companies and drug companies who often engage in stock buybacks, pay their CEOs outrageous compensation packages. There was a guy from one of the major drug companies sitting exactly where you are sitting last year. A guy makes $50 million a year. Meanwhile, we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough nurses, we don't have enough dentists, we don't have enough pharmacists, we don't have enough healthcare workers in general. You are right. The system is structurally broken. We spend far more, we have a shorter life expectancy than other countries. So this is an issue that I want to address with you. How, in fact, do we guarantee health care to all people and do it in an effective way? Let me say a word about prescription drugs. You and President Trump had a press conference earlier this week discussing an executive order that both of you claimed would make sure that the American people pay the lowest prices in the world for prescription drugs, not the highest. As you mentioned at your press conference, this is a concept that I personally strongly support, and I think you are aware of that. But as President Trump and you should know, this executive order, like Trump's previous executive orders on the subject, will likely be thrown out by the courts, and we will be back to exactly where we are today, paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. In my view, the way forward is through legislative action. So, if you and President Trump are serious about significantly lowering the outrageous price of prescription drugs in this country, as I hope you are, I would very much appreciate both of you working with me and other people on this committee and in the Senate on legislation that I will soon be introducing, which accomplishes exactly the same goal as you and the President talked about, making sure that we pay no more for prescription drugs than people in other major countries. So if we are serious about that, let's work together and let's make that happen. And in fact, if Republicans and Democrats come together on this, if we prioritize it, we can pass that legislation in a couple of weeks. Thirdly, Secretary Kennedy, all of us want to make the government more efficient and cost-effective, and few would deny that there is too much bureaucracy. But let me tell you also what we want and what the American people want. And that is, we want the federal government to play a major role in continuing its efforts to combat such terrible diseases as cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease, and other terrible illnesses that claim the lives of millions of Americans. In that regard, I must tell you that I have heard from citizens, patients, and doctors in Vermont and all over this country who are deeply concerned that under the leadership of you and Mr. Musk, the Trump administration has terminated at least $13.5 billion in health care funding, including more than 1,600 grants to conduct vital research into cancer prevention, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, among many other medical research investments. In the first 3 months of this year, the National Institute of Health has been effectively cut by $2.7 billion, a 35% cut, reversing over a decade of investment in medical research. Under your leadership, cancer research has been slashed by 31%. Further, Secretary Kennedy, under your leadership, you have undermined the vital role vaccines play in preventing disease during the single largest measles outbreak in 25 years, which has led to over 1,000 cases of measles, over 125 hospitalizations, and 3 deaths. And let me say a word about USAID. Elon Musk, the richest man on earth, who has led the effort to cut health and nutrition programs for the poorest people on earth, has absurdly suggested that no one quote unquote, no one, has died from the massive cuts to USAID. Mr. Musk is 100% wrong. According to independent researchers, nearly 200,000 people have already died throughout the world as a result of the massive cuts in funding to prevent malaria, tuberculosis, HIV, malnutrition, and other serious diseases. Further, as a result of the elimination of U.S. funding for a global vaccine program, it has been estimated that over 1 million children will die because of the cuts that will save taxpayers very, very little money. So let me just conclude by saying this. The United States of America is the wealthiest country on earth. We should have the best healthcare system in the world, not one of the worst. Given our purchasing power, we should be paying the lowest prices on earth for prescription drugs, not the highest. Instead of giving hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the richest people in this country, we should be proudly investing in coming up with cures for cancer, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, and other terrible illnesses. That is what we should be doing. But I am afraid that in too many ways, we are doing exactly the opposite. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Their health care, and their health care costs are going to go up as well.
Well, we'll argue on that one. Senator Sanders.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Mr. Besson, for being here. Help me out here. My understanding is the Trump administration has, I think, 13 billionaires in office right now, leading government agencies. Is that about right, do you think?
I have no idea, Senator.
I think that's what the number is. Do you think it's a coincidence, given the large number of billionaires in the Trump administration, that this particular piece of legislation would provide $235 billion in tax breaks to the top 0.2% by expanding the exemptions in the estate tax?
Senator, I will tell you that when the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, my tax rate went up.
Well, I don't know your exact situation, but I can tell you. Tell me about how many people do you think are in the top 0.2%?
Sorry?
Number of people in the top 0.2% who would benefit from this particular $235 billion tax break.
Well, the top, I know the top 10% is right. now paying 7%.
That's not the question. My question is, why do you think at a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality, when people like yourself economically have never, ever had it so good, why do you think it's a good idea to cut Medicaid for low-income and working-class people by $700 billion, to give $235 billion in tax breaks to the very, very, very richest people in this country, perhaps a few hundred families? Please justify that and tell me about that.
Well, Senator, I don't know, but the Democrats had the trifecta, and there was no tax increase or wealth tax on billionaires. You choose.
I'm not talking about a tax.
You chose not
Mr.
to do
Besson,
that,
I am not talking about a wealth tax. Explain. A few hundred of the wealthiest families in this country, $235 billion tax break. Explain to the American people why you think that's a great idea.
I think that this will increase small businesses substantially. That most small businesses, they are...
Has zero to do with, come on, you're smarter than that. This is the top 0.2%. This is not a mom and pop store. These are multi-billionaires, and the savings go to their kids after they pass away. This is nothing more than a gift to billionaires in this country.
Well, sir, that's just not correct, because the top 10% paid a bigger share of taxes after TCJA.
I'm talking about one provision in this. I don't want to argue with you about taxes in general. One provision, few hundred families, $235 billion in tax breaks. You can't justify that because morally it is totally unjustifiable. Let me ask you another question. If you guys want to cut $1 trillion in Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, the estimate from CBO, I believe, is that over 15 million people lose their health insurance. Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania estimated that when you throw that many low-income and working-class people off of health care, some 50,000 people a year will die. Tell me why you think it's a good idea to give tax breaks to billionaires and allow 50,000 low-income and working-class people to die unnecessarily?
Senator, first of all, that's overstated by 5.1 million. that is not attributed to this bill is simply...
It's a combination, that's true.
No, you all had a scheduled expiration of Obamacare subsidies, and you did not extend that when you were in charge. 5.1 million, 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid.
All right, look,
and there are work requirements. And our goal is to get more money to children and mothers.
Really? Your goal is to get more money to children, and working people, really, come on. Do you know how many people, and I was surprised to hear this, I don't know if you know it or not, how many people lose their jobs every year, quit, get fired or whatever? Do you have any idea?
Well, there's something called the quits rate, and so when the job market is strong, more people quit.
But yeah, I was surprised that I just researched this. I don't know. Do you happen to know?
I don't know the number.
I was surprised. Would it be shocking to you? It was to me. 20 million people leave their jobs a year. Doesn't shock you, right? It's a big labor force, right?
Yep.
So somebody leaves the job, maybe they move, maybe something happens in their lives, right? We have a lot of transition in the labor market, correct?
Maybe they get a better job.
Right, exactly, maybe they do. Or maybe they have to stay home, their wife gets sick, whatever, we don't know. But 20 million people lose their jobs in a given year, leave their jobs in a given year. Are those people lazy? What happens when I leave my job and maybe I have to move to another state to take care of my ill mother? And I desperately need Medicaid. Am I too lazy now to be able to get Medicaid?
I think that's a mischaracterization of the work requirement.
Really? Well, I'm not quite so sure it is.